Okay. Is that okay? I'm going to ask you a quiz question at the end to see if you've been paying attention. Because I know you like to hear stories about Krishna, but you also like to play. So I'm going to test your hearing stories about Krishna by asking you a quiz question at the end. Is that okay? Sure. Om Krishna
Krishna Prasad
Shivate Bhaktivedanta Swami Name Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishita Pastimes Tarini Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Srivasadi Gaura Bhattavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna in Vrindavan. Starting with chapter 11, Krishna's childhood pastimes. Krishna's childhood pastimes. We're going to get a very nice picture of the Supreme Personality of Godhead exchanging loving dealings with the elder gopis. So another picture is Vatsalya Rasa. And then, of course, playful Krishna is going to do playful things, but that comes later. Here's a little summary of this 11th chapter. This is going to have two parts, this evening and tomorrow. The release of Krishna from the mortar, caught between the Yamala Arjun trees. So that was chapter 10. Binding Krishna, Damodar Leela, falling over the twin Arjuna trees in the courtyard of Nanda, buying fruits, entering Vrindavan, herding the cows in the forest and killing Vatsasura and Bakasura. Actually, I think it's hurting the calves. The gopis would say, if you dance, my dear Krishna, then I shall give you half a sweetmeat. By saying these words, or by clapping their hands, all the gopis encouraged Krishna in different ways. At such times, although he was supremely powerful personality of Godhead, he would smile and dance according to their desire, as if he were a wooden doll in their hands. Well, this is a little bit older. He's playing a spoon and those things. Here's a bit younger again. Sometimes he would sing very loudly at their bidding. In this way, Krishna came completely under the control of the gopis. But he behaved as if, but he's the supremely independent personality of Godhead, but in his supreme independence, he likes submitting himself to the control and the love of his devotees, and that's what Krishna does throughout his pastimes, specifically with the devotees. And then he deals with the Vatsasura and other demons in the course of his childhood pastimes. Again, Vishwanath, sometimes without showing his powers, because of the gopis' love, which was mugdha, or innocent, he would sing like a wooden puppet. Here's Krishna in a swing, the gopis swinging Krishna, having him do different things. Mother Yasoda and her gopi friends would tell Krishna, bring this article, or bring that article. Sometimes they would order him to bring a wooden plank, wooden shoes, or wooden measuring pot. And Krishna, when thus ordered by the mothers, would try to bring them. Sometimes, however, they're very heavy. Sometimes, however, if unable to raise these things, he would touch them and stand there. Just to invite the pleasure of his relatives, he would strike his body with his arms to show that he had sufficient strength. Of course, the celebrated BBT painting of Krishna carrying Nanda Maharaj's suits. In order to test Krishna's strength, first the gopis would ask Krishna to bring the wooden shoes. Then they would ask him to bring heavier and heavier objects. In this way, ordered by the gopis, Yapta, he would stand up holding the object over his soft belly. In order to show his expertise, sometimes he would raise his hands up. All the relatives, Swanam, would become joyful. This is Vatsalya Rasa. So here's Krishna in his childhood, meandering through the courtyard of Nanda, and sometimes he would grab the tail of a cat. And when he would grab the tail of the cat would be startled. This cat would jump and he'd hold on to the tail and go for a ride. And the gopis would be in dismay, oh no. And Krishna was laughing and laughing and laughing. To pure devotees throughout the world who could understand his activities, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna exhibited how much he can be subdued by his devotees, his servants. In this way, he increased the pleasure of the Brajvasis by his childhood activities. So now comes some commentary. This is Jiva Goswami. The purpose is indicated. The word Britya, or servant, is used to reiterate the mood of those who know the powers of the Lord. The word Swanam is used to indicate those whom the Lord takes as his own family. He produced bliss for all the people in Braja by his childhood pastimes. Again, this is Vatsalya, or the mood of parental affection. And of course, we already heard the Damodar Leela, so he was sometimes be naughty. But naughtiness had a purpose. So here's a circumstance where Krishna hears the voice outside. Once a woman selling fruit was calling, "Oh, inhabitants of Brajabhumi, if you want to purchase some fruits, come here." And Prabhupada explains. Upon hearing this, Krishna immediately took some grains, shows Krishna reaching into a grain jar, and went to barter as if he needed some fruits. And Prabhupada explains, this is from Krishna book, Aborigines generally go to villagers to sell fruits. Jiva Goswami's commentary, he gave joy even to the lowest Govinda caste among the inhabitants of Vrindavan. The truth is full in every respect, but he wanted fruit. Again, Jiva Goswami, though he is the giver of all fruits, he quickly went out with a handful of grains, as only that was available at the moment. There's the lady selling her fruits in the fruit basket, and there's Krishna with some grains in his hand, and the grains are falling to his hand. And there she is, loading him up with fruits. And there's Krishna loading up her basket with jewels and gold. He who gives excellently, all results desired evil fruits. While Krishna was going to the fruit vendor very hastily, most of the grains he was holding fell. Nonetheless, the fruit vendor filled Krishna's hands with fruits, and her fruit basket was immediately filled with jewels of gold. The classic BB3 painting. So there's a nice teaching. We all know the nice teaching, the Bhagavad Gita teaching about fruit, flower, leaf, and water. Who knows? Let's say it together. We're going to say who knows the verse. We all know the verse together. Patram 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 toyam yomi bhaktya prayachati padam bhakti bharitam ashnami prayatatmana. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's rendering of the translation. I accept that which is offered with love from the genuine devotee, having pure body and mind, who gives just a leaf, flower, fruit, or water. Krishna is self-sufficient and not hungry, but he has an appetite for the bhakti with which the devotee makes an offering to him. So here's the fruit vendor giving Krishna some fruits, and Krishna's very happy reciprocating with her, and in different ways, mischievous Krishna in his childhood pastimes. He's reciprocating with the birds and the monkeys and the elders and you name it. giving happiness to everybody as if he's a little boy, although he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then there's his friends. Once, after the uprooting of the Yamla Arjun trees, Rohini, Devi, that's Balaram's mother, went to call Rama and Krishna, who had both gone to the riverside and were playing with the other boys with deep attention. And a commentary by three saying, events of a day after the Damodar incident, Pastimes are described showing Yashoda's care for her son with great affection, in order to show that she had greater affection and control over Balaram than Rohini had. And so this is several verses from we were to verse 20. So here's the verses. Because of being too attached to playing with the other boys, Krishna and Balaram did not return upon being called by Rohini. So what did Rohini do? She went and got Mother Yashoda. Therefore, Rohini sent Mother Yashoda to call them back, because Mother Yashoda was more affectionate to to Krishna and Balaram. So playing, and they didn't want to come back. Rohini called them, this is Jiva Goswami, and then she sent Yashoda, since Yashoda was able to attract them quickly because of her greater affection. If not to say that Rohini was a lesser and Yashoda was a greater affectionate mother, but the intensity, which is comparative and superlative in the realm of perfection, Yashoda was superlative, even with her own son, with Balaram. Why did she call them? She had affection for her son. She also feared accidents on the bank of the river and wanted to bathe and feed them, the two boys. Quite a mixture of art, isn't it? Mother Yashoda said, my dear son Krishna, lotus-eyed Krishna, come here and drink the milk of my breast. My dear darling, you must be very tired because of hunger and the fatigue of playing so long. There's no need to play anymore. It doesn't look like there's no need to play anymore. She addressed Balaram as the son of the dynasty, so that Krishna would come quickly out of envy. It can also be an address to him, meaning while speaking the son of the dynasty, because the same dynasty. Mother Yashoda further told Krishna, my dear son, because of playing all day, your body has become covered with dust and sand. Therefore, come back, take your bath, cleanse yourself. Today, the moon is conjoined with the auspicious star of your birth. Therefore, be pure and give cows in charity to the Brahmanas. And Srila Prabhupada's report. It is the custom of Vedic culture that whenever there is any auspicious ceremony, one should give valuable cows in charity to the Brahmanas. So she's persuading Krishna. Prabhupada's purport. Therefore, Mother Yashoda requested Krishna, instead of being enthusiastic in playing, now please come and be enthusiastic in charity. How's Krishna going to respond? She controls Krishna with love, but he also does what he wants. Just see how all your playmates of your own age have been cleansed and decorated with beautiful ornaments by their mothers. You should come here and After you've taken your bath, eaten your lunch, and been decorated with ornaments, you may play with your friends again. Vishwanath writes, when he still did not come, she tried to generate envy in him by showing the example of the other boys, the mothers. She, Jiva Goswami comments, she repeats the word pasha, or just see, as an expression of scolding, anger, or lamentation arising from prema. Seeing your friends who have been cleansed by their mothers by bathing, etc., and then nicely ornamented. So the scene is Maharaj Parikshit is inquiring about Krishna's childhood pastimes from Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami not only knows the pastimes, but he has realized the fullness of the pastimes. Shukadeva Goswami, that is a very nice description, among many nice descriptions. One of those very nice descriptions is Vyasadeva, after compiling Srimad Bhagavatam, had a very strong desire to teach or recite Srimad Bhagavatam to a very qualified person who could then deliver that message that he had compiled to the world. And although he just needed one, that one being the preeminent Shukadeva Goswami, in Vyasadeva's own estimation, Shukadeva Goswami was superior, although he was a son, because of his ecstatic realizations, ecstatic love for Krishna. So Shukadeva Goswami is explaining, my dear Maharaj Parikshit, because of intense love and affection, Mother Yashoda, Krishna's mother, considered Krishna, who was at the peak of all opulence, to be her own son. Thus, she took Krishna by the hand, along with Balaram, and brought them home, where she performed her duties by fully bathing them, dressing them, and feeding them. Now remember, Rohini requested Yashoda to do this because the boys were not being responsive. They were too busy playing. And she tried and this and that and the other, and finally she took them by the hand. And, motherly dealt with these little boys. She thought of the precious jewel of Ananta, the source of all avatars, Ashesha Shekharam, as her son. Another meaning is she considered him not as Bhagavan, but Sheshakaram. Actually, he was both. Vishwanath has some very nice comments here. Another meaning could be she thought of her son as the crest jewel of all of the entirety, Ashesha, of their family. Taking him to his house, Swabatam, she made him pay, eat, and then decorated him with a Now, all of this is a prelude to something exciting. But Sastra is going to enter into the um, scene where there's all the calves, and Sastra wants to kill Krishna. So he is behaving and interacting with the elders like he's a little doll or a plaything, and they're enjoying. Please bring this. Please bring that. And something looks too heavy, so he just touches it and smiles. He is behaving like a little child. Why? And one of the answers is he is the source of rasa, or he is rasa, and as the source of rasa, or all rasa is within him, he knows perfectly well how to reciprocate with each and every living entity. There's a very nice description by Sridhar Swami, where this is now coming from a later sect in Brahma's prayers. In Brahma's prayers, he is Brahma is speaking of Krishna as the source of happiness of all, because he's the source of all rasa. So Sridhar Swami comments, the number of living entities is without limit, asamkhya. You ready for your quiz question? I'm going to teach you a Sanskrit word. The word for there's so many you can't count is asamkhya. Better write it down. Asamkhya. Do you know what the word samkhya means? Samkhya means to count. You've heard of Samkhya Yoga? Oh, come on. You've heard of Samkhya Yoga. He hasn't heard of Samkhya Yoga. Yeah. Do you know who is Lord Kapila Dev? No. Lord Kapila Dev, the son of Devahuti and Karma Muni. Lord Kapila Dev. No. No. No bells. Okay. A very great personality, a partial incarnation of the personality of Godhead. Kapila Dev. You know, there's 12 great authorities, Mahajans. You heard the word Mahajan? Mahajana, great persons, Mahajana. And one of them is Kapila. And Kapila is especially, because he's an incarnation, he is especially known for his teaching Samkhya. You want a Bhagavad Gita lesson? No? You said no. Yes. See. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, Krishna gives a teaching that you're not the body, correct? And it goes back and forth. We're spirit soul, we're not the body. And then there's categories of coverings of the soul, and then there's the soul. So that the relationship between the coverings of the soul, and the categories of the coverings of the soul, that's Samkhya philosophy. That's what Kapila Dev taught to his mother, Devhuti. Samkhya philosophy. And that's the first half of chapter 2, Bhagavad Gita. Samkhya. And then following Samkhya, Krishna says, now that I've explained Samkhya, your mother will show you where that verse is in Bhagavad Gita. At 2.39. 2.39. Bhagavad Gita. Now that I've explained Samkhya, I'm going to explain Buddhi Yoga. You know what Buddhi is? Buddhi, Buddhi. Intelligence. You're intelligent. You're a little mischievous, but you're intelligent. So Bodhi yoga is once you know that you're spirit soul in the category of spirit, not in the category of matter, how do you live your life? It takes intelligence to know how to live your life, how to execute a life of I'm spirit soul. It takes intelligence. So that's what the second half of chapter 2 Bhagavad Gita is, Bodhi yoga. So Sankhya is a preliminary, and then when Sankhya is well developed, then one can act accordingly if you have intelligence. Unfortunately, you're a young devotee, you have very nice parents, and they'll teach you everything. You just have to listen, be attentive, instead of jumping around and being a jelly bean or something. So the Jiva Goswami, Sridhar Swami explains that Krishna is the source of everything, and from the source of everything comes everything. And among the things that come from the source of everything, living entities. And how many living entities are there? This is the quiz question. Asamkhya, too many to count. Sankhya means to count, and asamkhya means too many to count. Too many. And the source of all those too many to count living entities reciprocates rasa with each one, which means there's a particular rasa for you, and a particular rasa for your friend, a particular rasa for me, and a particular rasa for mom and dad, everybody else in the room. And that there's a particular rasa that we all have. And what is that rasa reciprocated with? The source of all rasa, Krishna. Therefore, it's logical, it's reasoning, it's just fact anyways, but Krishna has unlimited, as living entities are unlimited. The source of rasa that he has within is unlimited. Exactly for each living entity. So we just spent some time in the first part of chapter 11 hearing about how Krishna reciprocates with the elders, particularly the ladies. And there's some mention of Nanda Maharaj's shoes, so he's a participant, but it's specifically the varieties of reciprocation that Krishna has with the elder gopis. And some clap, some have him sing, some ask him to pick up light objects, some ask him to pick up heavy objects. So it's just playfulness with the elders, and they derive a happiness, a rasa. Not exactly happiness as we know it, but specifically a taste of loving exchange. And then we'll go way up, and that's Krishna's dear brother Balaram, his first expansion, Balaram, and Rohini, and her relationship with Krishna and Balaram. And sometimes she relies upon Yashoda to bring the two boys, because they're so busy playing. Then when she calls, they don't pay any attention. Then you don't do that, do you? Sometimes. Always. You play. So sometimes mother may use some tricks. And sometimes mother may have to take you by the hand and you do what you're supposed to do. They see you do different. But that's also another rasa, another motherly affection. And then the ultimate, everything that we do here, is is a reflection, or even more, an adjective, distorted reflection, an imperfect reflection of what exists in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, there's this unlimited exchange of love. And the pastimes that Krishna performs on earth are even more special. They're special, but more special than the pastimes in the spiritual world, in Goloka Vrindavan. More special because in the spiritual world, there's Mother Yashoda and there's Nanda Maharaj. But Krishna is not manifesting birth. He's not manifesting these playful little childhood pastimes because he's the eternal youth. He's 16, looking eternally. So these earthly pastimes, the childhood pastimes of Krishna and Vrindavan, have a very special, those three specials, affinity or a stimulation of love for all the residents of Vrindavan. All, not just the people, but all the residents of Vrindavan, because they're equally engaged in participating in Krishna, reciprocating with each and every one. Just like those nice paintings that showed Krishna was feeding the birds, he feeds the monkeys, and he's reciprocating with all the living entities. We're going to hear in the next couple of days, the other classes, where Krishna is going through the forest with Balaram, and they're looking at Krishna is looking at the trees and particularly appreciating the love that the trees have for him, but he's saying that the love that they have for you, Balaram. Just see this and just see that. In other words, the range of behavior or loving exchange, put it that way, the range of loving exchange that Krishna has knows no limit because the living entities know the number of them and variety of them know no limit. And he's reciprocating perfectly with each and every one. And even as he's glancing at the trees and the birds and the foliage and the flowers and everything, they're the object of his glance, and being the object of his glance, they're thrilled. They're experiencing, they're non-moving living entities like trees, but they're experiencing a happiness that's unique. How greatly fortunate, as we know, two persons. This is a good quiz question for you. There are two persons who prayed to one day take birth as a blade of grass in Vrindavan. Do you know who those two persons were? No. No. They prayed to take birth as a blade of grass. Uddhava. Uddhava? Good. Uddhava was, when Krishna was in Mathura, he was feeling great separation from the gopis, and he knew the gopis were feeling great separation from him. But he knew if he went back to Vrindavan, then the demons that were after him would harass the residents of Vrindavan, knowing that Krishna had special affection for the residents of Vrindavan. So he didn't go back to protect them and to protect them from harassment by the demons. So instead he sent a messenger, Uddhava. Uddhava was, you know who is Arjuna? Yes. Arjuna was Krishna's cousin. But So was Uddhava, Krishna's cousin. He had many cousins. And he sent Uddhava with a letter to the gopis, honoring the gopis and praising the gopis, and indicating he would soon come. So he sent Uddhava with that letter, a love letter from Krishna to the gopis. And when Uddhava saw the intensity of the love, first he went to see when he went to went to Vrindavan, the first place he went was the home of Nanda and Yasoda. Out of respect, he's the king and the queen of the Cowherd community. So he's visiting the Cowherd community, so he went to pay his respect to them. And when he went in their home, they were so immersed in love and separation from Krishna, they couldn't even acknowledge his presence. They were crying, bleary-eyed, like blinded with their tears, and they could hardly even acknowledge his presence in the room, in their house. When he saw that, like, what's next? Then he saw the gopis, and they were over the top. He then, after that visit, he quietly offered a prayer. These residents, these gopis, are so elevated. I would like the dust for their feet, but if I asked them for the dust of their feet, they'd be too embarrassed. So I would ask them if they'd be too embarrassed. But if I take birth as a blade of grass, then I can get dust from your feet on my head. My blade of grass head. So he offered a prayer. And that it happened. Here's what happened. There's a place, some of you have been to Vrindavan, and some of you have done parikrama around Govardhan Hill. And as you're going up the western side of Govardhan Hill, there's a very nice place called Uddhavakund. And Uddhavakund is a place where it is said Uddhava took birth as a blade of grass. And there's a long narration, very wonderful narration of the gopis hearing that Uddhava had taken birth as a blade of grass. So they had a very nice devotee recite Srimad Bhagavatam by Uddhavakund. And Uddhava came before them with palms folded just to hear the glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam. And they understood, yes, he took birth as a blade of grass. And was so enlivened that he manifested his form as Uddhava from that blade of grass. And Uddhava, looked so much like Krishna that when they saw Uddhava, they thought, there's Krishna. They looked more carefully and it wasn't Krishna. It just looked so much like Krishna. But he appeared from the blade of grass that was surrounding Uddhavakund because that was the plan. They were going to recite Srimad Bhagavatam and enliven themselves and enliven Uddhava. That was one person who made that prayer, that they would take birth as a blade of grass in Vrindavan. Who was the other one? One other person. The other person is Lord Brahma. And it's in the prayers of Brahma. We just completed this in Naperville. The prayer in chapter 14 of we're just discussing chapter 11. Here's the end of chapter 11. We're discussing in chapter 14. Brahma is offering prayers, and he, by his visit to Vrindavan, the circumstance was what it was. But by his visit to Vrindavan and experiencing the intensity of the love of the residents of Vrindavan, he became, his love, his affinity for Braja Prem became so accelerated, so elevated, that he didn't feel himself qualified because he had just offended Krishna. So if he was praying, let me just take some type of bird, even a blade of grass, down, just so I can be in Vrindavan with Krishna and the associates of Krishna in Vrindavan. You know, he's the he, Brahma, is the most intelligent person, the original born person, the head of a sampradaya, etc., etc. And he's looking up to the Vrindavan Dham and all the residents of Vrindavan Dham, whatever they may be. A whole long description of how fortunate are the residents of Vrindavan. But we, the demigods who are in charge of the senses of the resident of Vrindavan, we can't reside in Vrindavan, but through the senses of the resident of Vrindavan, we can experience Krishna and his pastime of Krishna in Vrindavan by being the presiding deities of the residents of Vrindavan. We're greatly fortunate. And further, it's kind of like Raghunath Sadhana Bhakti. He wishes to be like the residents of Vrindavan. May he take his birth someday as a living entity, even a blade of grass. Because it's such an exalted place. So here we are, so many thousands of years later, hearing about Krishna's childhood pastime to Vrindavan. And it's the very nature of the sound vibration is fully transcendental, coming from Shukadeva Goswami, and in an authorized descending, disciplic succession, descending method, hearing these descriptions that are not different than Krishna in this very special pastime that don't even take place in the spiritual sky, although they're within Krishna in not manifested form, they're fully manifested, which means they stimulate the love of his devotees. That's what Krishna does when he appears. He stimulates the love of his devotees. He does many other things. It's already being good here. He deals with Vatsasura. It was a demon who was imitating, pretending, hiding, as if he was one of the calves, with the intent that when Krishna was unaware, he attacked Krishna and killed him. That was his mindset. Not a nice fellow. Krishna was keeping his eye on Vatsasura, and at the right time, he finished him. A nice shepherd. He is a little bypassed, but he's a supreme. So he's reciprocating with, and when Vatsasura and all the demons killed by Krishna, they were liberated. Their sinful life was finished, and they attained a spiritual destination. Even they were inimical, but his kindness knows no bounds. That's Krishna's nature. What to speak of those that have affection for him, like the mothers. And then tomorrow, his playfulness with the coward voice and mindful of his age. He's between 3 and 4 years old. Think of some little boy between 3 and 4 years of age. How playful are they? So the playfulness of Krishna is fully exhibited, the happiness of the parents, of the elders is like that. They enjoy his company as elders. And then he does all the other things with every other living entity. It's I recommend the time we're going to be spending something like 9 classes. Try to hear with the ear of Rasa and Vishwanath. Hint: Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is a particular type of acharya who zeroes in or amplifies the rasa features of what Krishna does and says. And I predict by the end of these 9 classes, something can happen, some transformation will happen just by the sound vibration. The affinity, of course, just a particular age of Krishna, it's a very young age of Krishna, but the affinity for Vrindavan and the residents of Vrindavan and the mood of the Vrajvasis is, it'll spike, it'll elevate your consciousness. And now that's one prediction. Then another prediction is days after, you'll be thinking of these pastimes because they're so charming. And it's of our original attraction for Krishna is being awakened, even in the little childhood pastimes, 3 to 4 years old. And then we're going to move to when he's 4 years old. 4.5, 4 years, 4 months. Nice pastime. Nice pastime. Okay. Any comments or discussion? You ready for your first question? Can't wait until later. Now? Later.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for the very nice thoughts. My question is with regard to Uddhava's desire to become like a blade of grass, and he actually becomes one. So, how to understand, like in the role of a grass, the amount of service he could do versus as a person to be participating.
He wanted mercy. He was already doing volumes and volumes and volumes and volumes of service, service, and service, and service, and service. In his case, it wasn't like a lack of service. In addition to the mode of service, it was after some mercy. The dust of the mercy through down the cheek and the dust of the devotees. It's not like this. I understand your question. It's not like his mode of service diminished. But it gave him an opportunity. Supposing you or I may want to one day reside in Vrindavan. When you or I may one day reside in Vrindavan, we'll do volumes and volumes of service. When you and I do volumes and volumes of service, how eager are we going to be to get specifically at the dust of the gopis, the eternal subjects of Krishna in Vrindavan, dust from the feet? It's a very elevated aspiration. And maybe notionally, but his was more than notionally. It's this ecstatic stage. that he, from that experience of being in the association with the resident Vrindavan, specifically in the association with gopis, and seeing how they had become literally mad, mad, in anticipation of meeting with Krishna, he went back to Mathura, and he spent the rest of his life being with Krishna, doing service after service, and intimate service. You know, the thing, some of the things that he did, intimate service, right up to the very end. This affinity, the point, so your point is well taken. The service that he could do, he was already capable of doing, but not with the same mood of love that the resident David have. How do you get that mood of the resident of David? By getting their mercy. And one of the ways to get their mercy is figurative or literal. If that's what your feet. So that was his mature aspiration. Now it doesn't have to be take away earth as a blade of grass, but do service and service and service and service. Like Purna did when he entered into the Dham and saw Krishna's footprints enrolled in the dust of the Dham, on the footprints of Krishna in the soft sand of the Dham. It's not to be imitated, because there are persons that imitate, but it's not to be imitated. But when that state of elevated consciousness manifests itself, and how to get to that stage of manifesting the consciousness, it's by both doing, hearing. So he heard. He was the messenger of Krishna. He heard directly from Krishna and heard and saw directly, experienced the love of the resident of Vrindavan, particularly the love of the gopis. Nothing like it. There's no paucity of service in but if he asks for dust, the explanation is if he asked them for dust, they would be too shy. So he didn't ask. Rather he prayed to come touched by the dust of their feet. It's a spiritual inspiration. Anything else?
Hare Krishna. I had a clarification question on the recommendation you gave. We should try to listen with the ear of rasa. I'm trying to understand how can one start practicing. How does it look like? Does it look like I have to be more attentive, or do I have to meditate on the feelings of the characters in the pastimes?
Well, you hear from the acharyas that had that capacity, and they reveal it. It's in their the Rasika Bhaktas, like Vishwanath, reveal it. And you listen with that ear. For example, it's responsive in part to the question you just raised, but later in Vrindavan, Lord Brahma, who is the most intelligent, he's so intelligent, he knows how to build the universe. Like Brahman would challenge the scientist. You say life comes from chemicals. I'll give you all the chemicals. Tell me which ones you want. I'll give you all the chemicals. Let's see if you can make one mosquito. And not only a mosquito, they can fly in any direction. Not only that, you can reproduce itself. Make one mosquito. But Brahma made not just one mosquito, he made a whole universe. So how intelligent is Brahma? I mean, like super engineer, right? Whatever, this and that, and the other engineering, all into one person to build the universe. So when he went to Vrindavan and saw what he saw, he was curious. So I'm going from the other end to answer your question. But when he saw what he saw, and then Krishna revealed to him what was revealed to him, and then poof, Krishna withdrew it all. He was overwhelmed. He was short-circuited. And then he understood what he couldn't understand, even with the ability, the knowledge, the capacity, the acumen to build the universe. With Krishna, and, then he offers his wonderful prayers, and we're in this because we just did it, and prayers and prayers and prayers and prayers, and super elevated prayers. But he had now both knowledge of the opulence of Krishna and the sweetness of Krishna, and he was had greater affinity for the sweetness of Krishna than, in addition to the opulence of Krishna, the Aishvarya of Krishna, the majesty of Krishna, the unlimitedness of Krishna. So the Rasika Bhaktas, it's not that say Vishwanath is a good example. What does it look like for your question? How do you cultivate? By hearing from him, because he knows all about Krishna. And how does he know all about Krishna besides Pratanaya, Sadhunam, etc.? Well, reasons for which Krishna appears. That the higher reason is to reciprocating loving dealings with his devotees, his eternal associates, that take birth along with him, and he reciprocates loving dealings with them. So those who understand that, how does it look like, was your question? By hearing from them. And this is my experience. It takes a while to hear properly because, because at least say personally, probably most of us, we're accustomed to analysis, a little binary processor. And we see this and see that and compare this to that, so we start to understand things by that kind of analysis. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, or these devotees, they have accomplished that and beyond that, and they reveal beyond that. So this is my experience. When they make commentary, it resonates with the analysis feature of the intellect, as well as the deeper spiritual taste that he's tasting and he's expressing. So how to is by hearing from those that have that. And it's very sweet, very very sweet, and the kind of sweetness that it's not like the sweetness of eating ice cream or something, because you can only eat so much ice cream, and that's like thank you, that's enough. But a sweetness that knows no limit. this transcendental sweetness. And those that are experiencing that, associate with those that are experiencing that, and they're willingly, very capably sharing it with others in their commentary. There are others that are like that, but that's without listening necessarily the others that have to become familiar with. And Prabhupada in his Krishna book made a summary study and includes some of that. And in his BBT commentary, he has some of that. He'll give references. Sridhar Swami says, Jiva Goswami says, Sanatana Goswami says. So they're laced with the pastime is the revelation and the heart's jubilation from these great acharyas that they have that taste. And then successively, in the course of time, as one matures in Krishna consciousness, becoming a little bit familiar with our other acharyas. And that's partly what I have done in preparation for this visit, is commentaries by others, and it has that effect. Even if one doesn't know, even if it's not a purposeful, it just has that effect. The sound vibration has that effect. Anything else?
Thank you for a nice lecture. My question is on Uddhava. Uddhava, though a cousin of Krishna,
Yeah.
his mood or rasa with Krishna is more dasya than sakya.
It's both. It's a mixture.
Is that dasya is more dominant than sakya?
It wavers depending upon circumstance.
And my follow-up question is there a strong reason why he developed that mood of servant as Krishna? What is there a strong reason?
The reason one develops for those devotees who are so elevated, the reason is it's their natural rasa. That's the reason. It's their mood. It's their eternal situation in relation to Krishna. That's why one develops that which is natural to them on the spiritual platform. Not like pick and choose. I think we're ready for your quiz question. You know which question I'm going to ask you? Out of all the things, because I was spending some time with you, out of all the things that I was sharing with you, is there one thing that stands out that you can remember? How about this one? Samkhya and Asamkhya. What's the meaning of Samkhya and what's the meaning of Asamkhya?
Sankhya is count and cannot. Us Sankhya is cannot count.
Yeah, too many to count. That's pretty easy. One more difficult one? Let's start. If you sit up front like this, I'm going to single you out each time. That'll help you be more attentive. That's the idea. I'm not picking on you, it's helping you to be more attentive. Otherwise, your playfulness gets carried away. Anything else? Okay. See the Prabhupada,
So, Pastimes,